On the point of value and hidden value, I've been doing a lot of work just to try and figure out what value enterprise architecture actually brings. I'm constantly challenged in the rules about nobody buys enterprise architecture. What value is enterprise architecture? You always know when enterprise architecture is missing because the project tends to fail. Then you get brought back in and you have to do the architecture in retrospect with no budget, no time, a lot of other pressures. But before I joined the consulting firm, when I was in a blue chip organisation, every year it was justify your existence. You know, justify your budget, justify why you need that many staff. What value are you bringing to the organisation? How are you helping us? And every year I was struggling to come up with some rationale, and eventually get some money and get the team together and carry on. And next year, same cycle. So I've been doing some work before, and it's one thing that how do I constantly demonstrate to my bosses or to my clients where the value in enterprise architecture is. And this is part of my journey of where I've got to. So at the beginning, isn't actually any value in enterprise architecture. You know, there's the fact that the question continually comes up, you know, where's your value, suggests that actually we have to be open to the possibility maybe there is no value in enterprise architecture. And I'm quite sure nobody in this room falls into this camp, but we've all been in organisations where we've seen the architecture function deliver no value. Focus on themselves, deliver to themselves, working for themselves, in isolation, classic ivory tower architects. In that case, I would argue they derive no value. They deliver no value to the organisation. So for them, there is no value. But for us, and I think there's all in this, you know, we know what we do in an organisation. We know why we do it. And we know there is value to it. We may have difficulty explaining that value, may have difficulty selling that value, but we know there's value in doing it. There's some purpose in our existence in the market. So, on the basis, the rest of the talk assumes there is value. Move on from there. But why does nobody else see it? Why is it not obvious to people the value we bring? If you're working in a sales role, and you're bringing in contracts and bringing in sales and bringing in customers and bringing in money, is there value in your role? Absolutely. Why? Because you see the pounds at the end of the day. If you are in a third sector organisation and you're helping people, or you're in nursing, and you're making people get better, helping people get better, supporting them in their journey, is there value? Absolutely. It's very clear. So why is the value not so clear in architecture? Where are we? I think it's we falling down in communicating that value back to the organisation, back to our clients. So frameworks to the rescue. We need frameworks. TOGAF, ODAF, DODAF, and you saw the list earlier of all the other frameworks that exist. Pragmatic frameworks, implying there's non-pragmatic frameworks. People are obsessed about following a framework. You go into organisations, or I go to clients and they go, oh, it must be compliant with TOGAF. And you go, really? Has anybody in your organisation actually swallowed the TOGAF 9 and trying to do it properly? And occasionally you find companies that are trying to do everything through TOGAF. The project then completes, but the TOGAF documentation is not yet complete. You know, the program will continue almost in spite of the framework and what's happening. And so, frameworks themselves, they're useful. You can take bits from them. They give some consistency across an organisation. But as we're saying, absolutely must never become a slave to that framework. The framework itself has value, but it doesn't deliver value to your client, to your customer. What's happening? And I think probably the number one debate topic on LinkedIn is TOGAF, is it good or bad? And I just get really tired of that, because I don't care how many architects can dance in the head of a pin. I care about how my architect's delivering value. And from a Deloitte perspective, how can I sell my next piece of architecture to my client? How can I deliver the value to that client that we can come to me and buy it? My personal favourite, the Federal Enterprise Architecture Model. Partly because Deloitte about 5 years ago, put a nice paper that said enterprise architecture is dead. I thought, well, there was my career. And they were talking about the federal enterprise architecture model and how it had been badly implemented in America and the federal government. So what was the solution to that? Do they do a deep dive to understand why enterprise architecture is not delivering value? No, they produced version 2. So we have version 2 of the federal enterprise architecture model. Federal architecture framework, FAF. I don't think that's a coincidence. So frameworks themselves do not intrinsically add value. They may support delivery of value, but they're not value creating as such. So if that's not the solution, what about the artifacts that get produced as a result of the framework? Do these artifacts, these things that we do, these large documents, these big A0 posters that decorate all our walls, do they bring value? To an extent, they bring clarity, they bring some insight. It's a result of some analysis. I personally loathe any architecture that's done on PowerPoint. I find it really difficult to process a PowerPoint, all the information that gets put into a picture. I find it really difficult to maintain, update, correct, and do any other analysis on the back of it. Because so often, what you see, the artifact that is produced is this picture. People forget there's actually a whole model behind that, the whole set of data that you can process. But no, you get pictures. So this bottom one, these are all lifted straight off the internet in Google searches. So if they're one of yours, I apologise, but it is publicly available. So if it's incorporated there, that's your problem, not mine. You get diagrams like this, or information diagrams. And I defy anyone beyond the sort of big impact that says this is messy, this is complex. I defy anyone to pull any real value out of that picture. It's great for the shock effect. You put that in front of the your executive and they go, it's that complex. Why have you let it get that complex? It becomes your fault again. So you take these and think, well, actually, what value do these bring? I'm thinking, well, you could perhaps sell them in the art market. This is the new Damien Hirst, the new Banksy. You can cover large stamp patches on your walls in your offices because you tend to be in the less fashionable offices in the sort of the dark basements, etc. But this last one, I looked at it and I thought, actually, maybe there is money made in that. Maybe it's a Jackson Pollock in disguise. This one, called conformity. So back to the architecture piece. So do the artifacts have value? They're very useful for holding doors open. They're useful for covering damp patches in the walls. But unless you can extract value from that information in that picture, the artifacts themselves have no value. So frameworks have no value, limited value. Artifacts have limited value. Hell, we get to struggle slightly finding value with our vision. Classic architect. Back to that picture of, I've done all this analysis. I'm going to tell you all the analysis I've done and tell you why it's also complex. And no one cares. If your customers do not care how much work you've done, they care about what value you can bring to them, bring to the organisation. The fact you've had to do a lot of work for it is necessary, because you need to actually get that context and get the understanding and dive into that legacy application that no one there touched because it's 40 years plus old. But architecture, I always think when executives say to me, I don't understand, which they do tend to say quite a lot, I don't understand. They don't want more information, they want less. Lift it up, simplify it, back to that elevator message. Bring the message to the appropriate person in the appropriate language that they understand. So an architect needs to be able to communicate. And a lot of these artifacts we produce are useless for communication. So artifacts aren't any value. So let's dig into value. Where's value coming from? And of course it's amazing, these cyber currencies, cryptocurrencies that come through, Bitcoin, etc. Everyone believes there's value in Bitcoin. Or at least sufficient people believe there is value in Bitcoin to actually trade They're hours of labour that get converted into notes or into some record of cash and fiat currency to then buy this thing that's entirely intangible. It's just information. It's got no practical purpose other than as a mechanism of exchange back to some other fiat currency that allows you to just pay somebody else to do the work that you would have been doing in your garden or your house or whatever. So the value is coming in there somewhere. So where is the value? And it's a belief in the value. It's an intrinsic in electronic value that's there, held somewhere. But why is it there? And it's there because it enables people to do something that they want to do. To exchange currencies, to hold currencies, to speculate. There's some value in holding it that is for them. So we're thinking about actually that person seeing value because they're the customer. They have some purpose, they have some reason for having that information, that data. And they're achieving some outcome that they care about by holding Bitcoin. So we have never moved from value to customers. So at some point we have to have a customer involved in this journey. Who are you doing the work for? What services are you providing? So what is it that you are doing that they get value from? And here's a customer value piece. Costs, qualities, service, maybe some sort of social prestige, etc. All fits into that value the customer is getting from your work. So when you're presenting some information or some analysis that you've done, or you're trying to argue and steward the IT system to go in a particular direction, you're needing to think about what is the service that you're providing to that customer. What value are they getting from your conversation? What value are they getting from your work? What are they now able to do that they couldn't do before in that space? So you're looking at now saying architecture potentially moves from creation of artifacts to the delivery of a service. So architecture as a service, so we're kind of getting here now. So we have services. And if we have services, we can then measure, manage, and quantify the quality of those services that people may or may not buy. So we have this sort of a definition here of architecture services. Key things that in there is in delivering a service, your customer, your person, your organization you're delivering that service to, does never get ownership of all your artifacts that's generating that information. That's your collateral, that's what you are using to deliver that service. But they are getting some value in the back of it. Some value that has meaning to them and is valuable to them at a particular time or place. So the value that they might get from you when they do cost reduction will become really, that can be really valuable to them at that phase of the program or that phase of the organizational life cycle. If you're suddenly in some big growth life cycle, cost reduction is of no value to them. So you need to be aware of the context, which I mentioned earlier. What is valuable to the customer? Understand the strategy. What are they getting from your work? So have that awareness of here's the architectural services we provide, here's the quality of the services we provide, here's the cost of those services, here's the value of those services. And actually this year, based on the corporate strategy and the direction we're going, I'm going to focus on services 1, 3, and 9, because these are the ones that are going to deliver value in this phase of the company. So that's where the values begin to come through in that model. But actually, ultimately, the customer tells you whether or not you're delivering value to them, meeting their expectations. So back to having the engagements in the elevator, you need to have that constant discussion, is this valuable to you? Not, here's what I'm going to do, here's the artifacts I'm going to create, here's the analysis I'm going to do, but actually here's the value I'm going to deliver to you. This sort of statement, in our classic architecture, why should we be funding this year? Back to the original question, why should we be funding this year? And saying, well, we create application landscapes to identify opportunities for rationalization to reduce the operating cost of IT. Sounds a reasonable statement of what most architecture functions would do in a cost reduction way. But where's the focus in that sentence? The focus in that sentence is creating an artifact. How many customers care that you create an artifact? So borrowing from Simon Sinek, if anyone hasn't seen it, there's These are a number of presentations all around starting from why, what's your purpose, why are you doing something. Very, very worth it. 10 minutes, 15 minutes worth watching. So we took that sentence and flipped it around. And I've color-coded phrases just to make sure that it's clear that it's basically the same words in a slightly different order. So instead of going to your customer and saying we're going to create application landscapes, by the time you get to the end of the sentence they've forgotten where you started because they've got bored. Flip it around, put the punchline at the beginning. We're going to focus on reducing costs. We're going to do this by identifying opportunities for rationalization through landscapes. So the primary focus of your work is on delivering value. And the fact you need to create artifacts to do that is very much secondary down the pipeline. And if you're in the lift, in this elevator, moving between the floors as you move through your message, you only hear the first part of that sentence. So, first one, architects, oh, we create landscapes. Don't care, what are they? Second one, we focus on reducing the operating cost of the organisation. Oh, I would tell me more. So that's where the value is coming from. We've got customers, we've got a focus on delivering value, the artifacts and the frameworks are all secondary, necessary evils, if you like, to do it. But the focus is very much here on, if you think you've got value in your organisation, state the value that you deliver to the organisation up front, repeatedly, frequently, and keep checking that that is still valuable to your customer. And that's my journey. Thank you.